Do you have any brothers and sisters, Bill?
I had no brothers and sisters. My parents had been married 7 years when I was born. My mother and father had wanted children earlier than that, but I think there were 2 miscarriages before I was born, and they never had another child. So I was the beneficiary, the sole beneficiary of 2 very loving and caring parents who really devoted their entire lives to me. And years later, when my father sat in a courtroom, the back of the courtroom in the Sander case, and heard me participating in that, my mother said as they drove back to Maine, where they had moved back after I went in the service to have more family around, my father said that as far as he was concerned, he'd seen his life fulfilled.
Tell us about your own family, Bill.
I didn't mention, obviously, in the prior resume in my history, one of the most significant events in my life was the wonderful wife I've been blessed with, who was the sister of one of my college roommates and classmates. I first met Joan when I was a freshman in college. I was a senior in college and she was a senior in high school, and we met at the Yale Bowl at a football game. She'd come up there with her parents, and I'd gone down with her brother. I met her and we just got acquainted. Then I had no interest in her. Over a period of years, by the time I got into law school, she and I were seeing each other. She was in college, and in June of 1942, right after I was commissioned, the same day that I was commissioned in the Marines, she graduated from Connecticut College in New London, Connecticut, and we were married a week later and had a very extensive honeymoon, which consisted of one night at the Berkeley Carteret Hotel in Asbury Park. And I got on a train and went right back to Quantico. But we're now approaching the 53rd year of our marriage, and we have 3 wonderful children, of whom we're very proud. My eldest son, Bill, is an academician. He's a tenured professor and a dean of undergraduate studies at the University of Rochester in New York. He's married and has 2 wonderful young sons who are presently aged 14 and 8. My daughter, Nancy, lives in Boston and is married to a lawyer who also engages in some real estate activities, and she has a great little daughter who's in her first year at Milton Academy and is 14 years old, and she's a joy to all of us. She's our only granddaughter. And my youngest son is a partner in the firm of Reed and Priest in New York City. And he and his wife, Dick's wife is in business in New York in investment banking, and they're both about 40 years old and just had their first child, and everybody is just delighted about it. I don't know whether they'll have more, but my youngest grandson now, whom we went down to see, of course, very early, is a joy. His name is Sam, and he's become something of a personality in his own right already. The whole family's now concentrating on him.
Bill, what guided you to become a lawyer, to go to law school, etc.?
Well, I really, it's almost a process of osmosis. I grew up in a neighborhood where there was a tremendous presence of lawyers and judges. We lived on Clark Street. 2 doors away lived Alan Wilson, who was one of the partners in what was then Warren, Wilson, Bingham, and McLaughlin, which was the forerunner of Wigan and Norrie. Walker Wigan later joined that firm. The name was changed. So Alan Wilson lived on that corner. Right next to us was Louis E. Wyman, Louis C. Wyman's father, Judge Wyman's father, former judge and congressman. Up the street, on Chestnut Street, living across the street from each other, were John R. McLean and Ralph W. Davis, who were the forerunners of McLean Davis Carlton, the McLean firm as we know it today. Right behind us, the house right behind us, was George H. Bingham of the First Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston, a very, very imposing figure who used to walk, I think, and take the train back and forth from Boston almost daily in a wing collar, and he had a cane, and he was a pretty impressive guy. And up the street, another way, there was Judge Nathan P. Hunt, who I think was judge of probate. I'm not sure about that, but I think that's what it was. I also had a good friend whose father was judge of the municipal courts, Judge Perkins. So I had a lot of exposure, and I respected and admired all these people. And as I think back on it, I don't know how early I started thinking about being a lawyer, but I can't remember really any time when I was thinking about anything else. So I must have really had this in my head all the way through, and as I think back on some of the courses I chose in college, they were in that direction. I did a lot of debating in college, which I think probably was also indirectly reflecting desire to be a lawyer. So I've just, I think my circumstances and the flow of my life was such that it carried me right off in that direction, and I really, as I say, had never thought about being anything else.